It seems like LSU has been practicing for an awfully long time. It's just a completely different. It's a completely different feel. You know, we're seeing some video, but we're not out there. And of course, there's no game coming up in a week that we can change the way that there should be. But given all of that and what you've been able to glean so far from this team, what do you like? What concerns you? Where are you a month out from LSU football?
I mean, I've been listening. We don't have any sports, or I wouldn't have to listen to you guys every day for my only entertainment. So I've worried about some similar stuff as you guys. I mean, it always starts in the trenches, right? And I think that the biggest question mark for me, whether that's a good or bad thing, it's more of an unknown question mark, is the D line and which guys are really going to emerge at the end, especially in the wake of Justin Thomas and Neil Farrell being gone. We've heard good things about different guys, but I don't think we would have thought we would be in a spot where a guy like Trevez Moore was starting at defensive end. And I think he's probably grown his game a good bit over these couple of years since coming in from JUCO, but now it seems like it's a guy like Ali Gay, another JUCO transfer who could end up being someone opposite Andre Anthony, who's the one guy that, if you're listening to Coach O talk, and over the past few years, he's always been incredibly honest with how he thinks about it. It's not a guessing game like Les Miles. It's pretty crystal clear of who he says he likes and who he's got, or circled as guys who maybe have room for improvement. And the one guy he's consistently liked is Andre Anthony. So we can assume that he's a starter. We can assume that Tyler Sheldon certainly is a starter. And Glenn Logan's got double-digit starts for you and can slide inside and play tackle. But what do guys like Apu and certainly those JUCO kids, B.J. Ojolari, Jaquelin Roy, and even Andre Anthony, what do these guys bring for you? The O-line, sure, question marks, but we know who the starters are, and most of them have played in some capacity, whether it's here or at Harvard or wherever it might be. They've got playing time. The D-line's just so interesting to me because in a transition year where you're putting four guys' hands in the dirt and you've got a new coordinator and your head coach knows D-line like the back of his hand, there's just so many new faces that it's going to be interesting to see who can really emerge.
Shea, it always seems like during training camp we'll hear about one, maybe two freshmen who could have an impact on a team. I don't remember hearing this many freshman names thrown out there from a coach who are expected to maybe not be starters but be contributors. And you've got a couple that will be starters, Ricks and obviously Gilbert, they come to mind. Can you remember a coach talking about a freshman class as much as far as guys who could potentially start?
No, and I mean, a couple of years ago they had a class with Stingley and then all the running backs, who were coming in locally, John Emery and Davis, Price, and then we knew that guys were going to play early. But he seems pretty high on some of these guys, which is surprising. I think that's notable. And if you want to make it really simple, it'd be like this. I think guys like Trevez Moore are, playing a starting role or seeing first-team action because you didn't have a spring. You had a very shortened summer. Now you're in this oddball camp. You don't have time to catch everybody up. You just don't. And this next month is certainly important, but guys like that have an advantage. I mean, a guy like Trevez Moore has been around the program for 3 years now, so he can move into that starting role, and you're not missing a beat when you're running first team. When guys like Eric Gilbert at tight end, at Eli Ricks at corner, are moving themselves into that mix, and now we're hearing more about B.J. Ojolari as a pass rush specialist on third down and someone who's bulked up and is going to be playing at defensive end. And Orgeron said, look, I consider him to be a rotational starter right now. Given that they didn't have spring for the early enrollees, the summer was odd, the fall's been what it's been, that those kids have jumped into the mix. I don't care who they lost and who they've got coming back. That means something to me that Orgeron feels like, look, these guys are the real deal. And when it comes to playing catch up and getting ready to play, the gap they need to close isn't as big as maybe it normally is for a lot of other kids.
Shea, you covered recruiting for a long time. What's the recruiting landscape right now? Some kids are playing, some kids are not, some kids are going to play later. We learned earlier today that the governor has extended phase 2 for another 2 weeks past Friday. That's another blow for high school football. I don't know exactly how the LHSA is going to respond to that. Tell me what your feel is, what you're hearing out there as you try to recruit in this landscape.
I mean, it's tough. I think a lot of these kids are just tired. They're worn down. They're tired from doing nothing because normally all of these kids, and let's say these seniors, LSU's got 16 commits. They can go up to 26. So you've got 10 more spots. They are recruiting kids who for so long you can only pitch stuff over Zoom. I guess I should have said that. You can only pitch stuff over Zoom for so long before the kids and the coaches are saying, we've said all we can. We just need to get you to campus. And the NCAA dead period's now been extended into October. There's been rumblings that maybe in a very small capacity of kids at a time that things could open up by November. But how do you, for instance, a kid who's entering his senior year and has picked up some offers this offseason, which is a lot of kids, they watch your junior film, now they've offered you. I've never visited. I've never met you in person. And I can sign in December, and you're telling me that I may not be able to ever visit you before then? How am I supposed to make that sort of life decision? And I think for whether you're a 5-star or whether you're a kid who is trying to get on an FCS school, it doesn't matter. It's all been the same boat. And I think that's caused a lot of kids to wonder, all right, should I just go ahead and commit to a school that I have met everybody, that I have visited, that I feel comfortable with? And I think we've seen that more than anything else. So, gosh, I could probably do a study on this, but the kids who went to college campuses in January and February and early March, the amount of kids who have committed to that school that they were at there at the end is large, because I think it's, well, I visited the one school or two schools I was really interested in, and I've got new offers, but I'm going to probably end up going somewhere that I'm pretty already familiar with and don't have to risk potentially committing and then signing and never have met a coach in person.
Well, without me going off on another tirade about the paranoia around some of this stuff and hiding at home under the bed for the rest of our lives, can you explain to me what the difference is between an 18-year-old recruit and a 20-year-old kid being in that building if they go through the same protocols? You bring in a kid from a high school in New Orleans or wherever. You put him through the same protocols that you would put your regular players through. Their ages are very, very similar. What's the difference? The protocols are working. Why wouldn't you be able to put a recruit at the age of 17 through the same protocols that you put a freshman that is 19 and get them into the building and let them have some information on the biggest decision that they've ever had to make?
And I think that's what they're trying to figure out. I think that when we get there, they're going to have to open it up at some point before December, which is why there's buzz about November. And I'm with you. You'd have to. Now, look, on official visits, when you come in to make a decision, often you've got your mom and dad, your grandma. Now, I would imagine.
Okay, well, grandma's got to stay home. That part I understand. That part I understand,
right.
Shay. Grandma's got to stay home.
Smaller. So what I think, and we'll see where they go with testing and all this, but each conference is going to say exactly that. Okay, you can bring 2 people with you. You're all going to be tested, whether it's your temperature and a questionnaire about, have you been experiencing symptoms, or whether they've got a rapid test in that could be covered by an official visit. But they've got to come up with something. There's no way you can drag this out past December, because that's when 80% of the kids are going to sign. And college coaches and kids alike, the recruits, are all frustrated right now, and they all understand, right? We're all dealing with this in different ways, but for them, I think they're all saying, okay, this is a major part. You want to play sports, great, but we need to figure out how you can only fill an 85-person roster if you continue to sign 20-something kids a year. We need to meet these kids. We need to be face-to-face with them, and vice versa. They're going to have to do that. My guess is it's going to be one kid. You can bring 2 people with you. You can only have a handful of visitors in a weekend, and there'll certainly probably be restrictions on everything you can do, whether it's going off campus and eating. Maybe you don't do that anymore, but they're going to have to open it up. The dead period you cannot keep kicking this can down the road. It makes no sense.
Shay, are we even sure there will be a December signing period because of all the uncertainty? Could they just say, hey, for this year, let's get rid of what's become the signing period, and let's just go back to only having a February in 2021?
I mean, I don't think they can do that, and in large part because colleges like LSU would be upset if they've already put together, by then it'll be 20-something commitments, and the same for everyone else, and they want those guys, they want their Jacob Hesters locked in because they don't want anyone to come steal them on the back end. So I think the coaches are still going to be pushing for the December signing period to stay, just because that gives everyone a chance, if they want to go ahead and sign. And that's when I think that the bulk of it will probably happen in terms of commits. It's just odd. Maybe this year we see more kids hold off in hopes that they can make visits in January and February before signing, at February signing day or sometime after that. I do think there'll be a trickle effect of some notable guys out there who aren't following the normal timeline of signing in December and February, because either they're playing high school in the spring or they're still trying to make visits then.
Shea, what's coming up next? Go 247. What you working on?
Well, man, it doesn't slow down. I mean, I think they could be brewing for some commits here in the next a couple of weeks. I know Friday is a big one. Corey Raymond doesn't have a corner yet in this class, and he's honed in on a kid in Atlanta, Nathaniel Wiggins. He's the number 6 corner in the country and a top 100 guy. I won't be surprised if he climbs up higher, but long, can turn and run, incredibly good cover kid with athleticism, which I describe that sort of player, and you would say, hey, that sounds like the kind of guy that Corey Raymond would go after. And LSU's in it with, I think, Oregon, Southern Cal, Florida, some teams still hanging around, but he's going to announce on Friday. We've all got our crystal ball picks on LSU, and I think this would be a cornerstone type piece. If they can pull it off, remember the name, Nathaniel Wiggins. He's as talented as the Flotts and the Rickses, and he would be a pretty big time player for them to get.
Shea, we appreciate it. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, you guys stay safe as well. Thanks for having me on.